All right, welcome back to episode 23 of Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings. I'm your co-host, Chris. I'm the philosophy professor and the Steelers fan in the group here.
And I'm your other co-host, Ajay Nair, and I am the psychiatrist and Chiefs fan in the group here. Thank you to everyone that's been following along, either with the audio version of the podcast on whatever app you download podcasts on, Steeler Thoughts, Chief Feelings, or those of you that follow along on YouTube or our social media, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at STCF715. Thank you for all the engagement. And on that note, I have the comment of the week. This week, it's on YouTube from a short that we posted from the Chiefs-Falcons game where, the final fourth down where the Chiefs stopped the Falcons. We posted a short kind of breaking that down briefly. And Flyboy Entertainment 69 replied, "If the lead blocker had brain cells, that would have been a good gain of yardage, but really good breakdown." So that's our comment of the week.
Brain cells are overrated. Let's just put that put that to rest. Yeah, well, I'm sure the lead blocker does have brain cells, but in fact, actually, this just here's a digression right off the bat. Do you know that story about the guy? He was like 40 something. I think it was in the UK maybe, and was having like bad headaches and went and got checked out. And turns out that basically he didn't have a brain. It was basically just some gray matter around the outside, but it was a huge. What's it called when it's like filled with fluid, basically? A lot of cerebrospinal fluid, just like in the where you would expect the brain to be, essentially. And he was like 40 something. So that's.
Wait, but was this just like a Mass Effect where like the brain was being compressed, or like there was actually less tissue?
I think there was just less tissue, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, but yeah, that's just to make my case. The brain cells don't really matter. I mean, I'm sure they matter. But yeah, it's a good case to give people who think that the mind is just the brain, something like that. Think about it more. Anyway, so to get back to football, we have 2 games to break down this week. Chiefs and Steelers. They didn't both win for the first time this year. But plenty to talk about. Do you want to do the Chiefs game first?
Sure.
So again, I'll just ask for your maybe like high level general thoughts about it, and obviously the Rashee Rice injury looms large. So anything you want to say about either of those things, go ahead.
Well, so I'll try to separate them because obviously, like losing Rashee Rice, especially how bad it seems from what we know, makes this like the worst game of the year, right? But if you kind of separate that out from it, I would say this was possibly the best win of the year, and I think the reason why is that the Chiefs were completely shook in the first quarter. Mahomes was off again. He seems to just start games off these days. And he's off in the first quarter. Mahomes himself injures Rashee Rice after throwing a pick on just a bad throw. And the offensive line was really not holding up. You could see Mahomes wasn't trusting the protection. He was bailing out of clean pockets. He didn't feel like he had the time even when he did. It just looked like it was an overall mess. Like it looked like this could be an offensive performance that would mirror the Christmas Day game last year when we lost to the Raiders. It just seemed like everything was out of sync and Mahomes just couldn't get everything together. And then that bomb to Xavier Worthy really changed the tenor of the offense. And I thought it was just a really gritty win. Like the defense held down the fort. The Chargers opening script was good. They got a touchdown, and then they got the field goal off the turnover, and then the defense really shut them down from there. I thought Spags called blitzes at good times. I thought Chris Jones was incredibly disruptive again. I thought it was a character win. It was one of those where just last year we saw a game like this go completely wrong against, in my opinion, a less talented team. And I mean, the Chargers were without their tackles. I'm not saying that like we beat up like an opponent that was at their best, but I thought it was a team that really wanted to beat us. It was on the road. We did everything wrong to start, and we were able to steady the ship and get a win. I thought that was actually a very encouraging victory.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, you mentioned that the Worthy touchdown seemed to open things up for you. Do you think the Chargers started playing differently to defend the deep pass at that point, or what? Or do you just think that it sort of energized the offense when you had to score like that?
I think it was more that it energized the offense. They still did some. I haven't looked at the film yet. Actually, that I'm hoping to do the Chiefs film breakdown tonight. The day job continues to be busy, so we'll see. I thought I was going to be able to do it for sure tonight, but I'm not 100% sure. But I'll try to get that out tonight. And in just looking at what I've seen so far, they did still pressure the Chiefs receivers at times. In fact, the first down to Worthy on the crossing route that sealed the game, it was on a third down at the end of the game that let us run out the clock. They were playing cover 0. And last year, that was a real tough spot for us. I mean, when we had a similar situation, cover 0, and we actually converted, was when we were playing the Ravens in the AFC title game, and Mahomes threw that long pass to Valdez-Scantling to seal the game. That was our one answer against cover 0. But here, having guys like Worthy that can still beat man coverage, I think, it's still not quite as bad as last year. I think Kelsey can beat man coverage when we want him to. He showed that in this game this week. And Worthy can beat man coverage too. And I think that's enough. It's not ideal. And it really does look like we're going to be without Rice for a while and Brown for a while. But I do think this offense is that the receiving core is marginally better than last year. And so hopefully won't be as painful as last year.
Even in its present state of significant injuries to your top receivers. Yeah. It did seem like Kelsey sort of had a coming out party for Kelsey. Is maybe not the right word because everyone knows him and he's been dangerous for years. But he had a good game this week. I thought must have been nice to see. So about Rice, and I think we don't oddly know yet, right? What the severity of it is.
Yeah, and I feel like the only thing that one could be based on that is slightly encouraged because, diagnosing an ACL tear isn't that hard. You actually can often, if it's a full tear, you can do it with a physical exam on the sideline. Like they know immediately. And based on how down Andy Reid was about Rice's injury, I presume that something was pretty definitive on the sideline. So I was pretty surprised. MRI is great imaging. It's kind of odd to get an MRI and then be like, well, we're not really sure what's going on. That's very confusing, Normally what the MRI would tell you in this situation more than just the ACL tear would be if there was more damage. That's what I would have been concerned about. But the fact that they're not coming out and confirming anything after an MRI is a little weird. I don't think that means that it's not a serious injury, but it at least gives like a sliver of hope. Whereas I don't think there was any before the MRI. So I don't know what to make of it at this point.
Yeah, that is strange. But I guess there's now a question of whether they're going to be in the market for a wide receiver. Do you have thoughts about, you have a prediction about that? I mean, I guess suppose Rice is out for a long time, what do you think they would do?
Well, I think that people can calm down the train as far as them signing anyone really expensive. The Chiefs don't have a ton of cap room, and we know the Chiefs don't really do that. If they do get somebody, it'll be like a, bottom of the roster guy. Like when we needed a pass rusher a couple years ago, I think we traded a 6th-round pick to you all for Melvin Ingram. We make those kinds of moves. We did trade a 3rd-round pick for Kadarius Toney, but he's a distressed asset. It's going to be someone like that, someone that another team doesn't really want and is willing to part for a decent asset, or a decently affordable asset, I should say, something like a day 2 pick or a day 3 pick. The one name that keeps coming up a lot is Amari Cooper, because apparently Amari Cooper's base salary is only $1.2 million this year, and the Browns are not playing very well. But I think sometimes people overrate like how much a team that is, it's early in the season. It's not like the Browns are going to throw in the towel, and I don't know that they're like out on Kevin Stefanski. Usually the teams that are like completely selling everything are the teams that are going to blow it up personnel wise and everything. And I don't know that the Browns are like unhappy with their front office or with Kevin Stefanski. So I don't know that it makes a lot of sense for them to just trade away Amari Cooper for peanuts. I think it'll be like, I think it'll be like when the Chiefs picked up Josh Gordon that one year, or the move we make will be something very small. Honestly, if the Browns cut Kadarius Toney, I could see the Chiefs getting Kadarius Toney. And that doesn't make me happy, nor do I think it would make a lot of Chiefs fans happy. But I don't think it's going to be a move of that's someone like way more significant than that.
Yeah, so that could be like signing Devontae Adams or something like that.
Right.
Which apparently the Raiders are shopping around. I don't know. I guess for the same reason you wonder how much stock to put in these kinds of things, especially this early in the season. But I guess if they're unhappy, you can have the phone lines open or whatever. But yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we can get into a bit more detail about the Chiefs' performance here. Obviously, I think maybe after the first quarter, you have to be really happy with the defense. Chris Jones, like you were saying, really, wrecked this game at a couple points, I thought. But general thoughts on how the defense was today or 2 days ago?
I thought the defense played really well. I think that the one thing that continues to be a little thorn in our side is the linebacker coverage issue. Tight ends still seem to be able to get open at times. And what's weird is it's not just Nick Bolton. Drew Tranquil was a good coverage linebacker last year. And this year he's like, I put it on Twitter, I feel like he's like Spags is like slowly morphing him into Nick Bolton. He's like gotten better against the run. He's better downhill this year, and he's worse in coverage. I don't know what to make of that. It's been strange watching him, get beat in coverage. But all in all, the defense played really well. It was nice to see a variety of guys make plays. I think the pass rush has been really strong because Turk Wharton has continued to have an awesome. We're 4 games in now, and we have 2 really good defensive tackles. Like Tershawn Wharton is making his presence known alongside Chris Jones. Our edges haven't been, Karlaftis hasn't been as great as he usually is, and Mike Dana usually makes his presence known more in the run game or if he's rushing from the interior. But anyway, I think all in all, the defense has played pretty well. There have been hiccups here and there, but you really can't ask for more from the defense at this stage.
Do you think the linebacker struggles in coverage are schematic, or is it something about the way they're being taught to play that, or maybe they're just, it's individual issues in both cases? But if it's a trend among the linebackers, then you might wonder if there's something more going on.
Yeah, I do think there is a schematic part to it, and there's just the kind of linebacker that Steve Spagnuolo looks for in his defense, because this was a problem before Nick Bolton. If Nick Bolton leaves, it'll be a problem after Nick Bolton. I don't think, Spagnuolo very much wants linebackers that are smart, that can run the defense, and that get downhill and shoot gaps against the run and the blitz. And if you can coverage, that seems to be like a bonus, And they all cover fine, right? Like on a key 4th down where they're trying to run little out routes, Nick Bolton seems to stick to people. It just seems like more complicated routes, especially down the field, is where the linebackers don't excel. And I don't know that Spagnuolo really cares to look for linebackers that do that unless they can do everything else also.
Yeah. Yeah, your attitude might just be like, look, it's working for us so far. The defense has been playing well this year. And even if you're giving up, mostly seam or passes to tight ends or whatever, then, well, okay, we can live with that. You gave up 10 points this week. So.
Right.
What about the offense? Unless there's anything more with the defense that you wanted to comment on, what were your thoughts about the offense?
I thought the offense was okay after they settled down. You know, it's a tough spot to lose because I really think that the team was shifting this year towards centering the offense around Rashee Rice, which is part of the reason why Kelsey hadn't been as productive. I think they were really kind of practicing using the offense without Kelsey. And so having an offensive game plan designed around someone and then losing them in the first quarter is tough. And I think the Chiefs kind of settled down and they moved the ball fine. Like, I don't think, you know, you'd love to score more than 17 points. But they could have on that last drive. They were moving the ball again. We kind of did what you all did. We just kept running the ball down the Chargers, and I just love it. There's nothing that gives me more pleasure than just bully balling Jim Harbaugh. But the only caveat I have with the offense is, like, we know Derwin James wasn't playing. I'm less worried about the fact that Joey Bosa wasn't playing because he misses a lot of time, so I don't know what to make of, you know. But, you know, they weren't at full strength. But like I said before the season started in our prediction podcast, the Chargers don't have that strong of a roster. You know, everyone loves their coaching staff, and I get it. But you need players to win, and especially with a hobbled Herbert, it was going to be tough for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It did seem like the offense was moving. I mean, aside again from the early struggles, I don't know exactly how you diagnose that. Is it just taking a little while for the adrenaline to get going or something? I mean, we have the same problem. So if you can figure it out for the Chiefs, maybe we can have the same solution for the Steelers. But we start slow every time.
I think for whatever reason, the line struggled a little bit to start. And like every first quarter this season, except I think week 1, Mahomes has been off. I don't know. He's missed a throw here or there. It's taken him a moment to settle down. I don't know what to make of that because inaccuracy has not really been a problem for him. And, you know, that throw to Kelsey, he just sailed it. Like, and what's weird is I remember him throwing an almost identical pick, but it was, I mean, it was a similar route, right, to last week when he threw the pick, right? That one he underthrew, but it was like a corner pattern to Noah Gray. And he had a corner pattern to Noah Gray against the Jets last year in week 4 where he threw a surprising pick. I honestly can't remember if he over or under threw that one, but it's just these kind of throws on that route that just off, and I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's two kinds of picks, right? In general, right? There's the kind of pick where it's like you did not understand what the defense was doing there, and there's just one where you just, you know, misplaced it. And I feel like the first one is typically more concerning. So in some respects, it was not the most concerning pick, at least. I mean, at this point in Mahomes' career, you don't really worry about him not understanding things too much. But
although I will say he got by a cover, like, I don't know if it was a cover 0 blitz, but he definitely got, like, it was very weird to watch. I'm sure it's happened to Mahomes before, but I can't remember it. Where, like, they have a blitz, the protection is not set, and it's Mahomes who sets the protections, and they just get a free rusher and sack him. Like, that's stuff we do to other teams. It was really weird. That was in the first quarter, too. So it just seemed like a game from hell. Like, I was prepared for this to be just an offensive nightmare, and then somehow they turned it around.
It didn't look good in the early going there, but yeah, they did turn it around. But I mean, like, even like good quarterbacks are still going to get, you know, confused once in a while or tricked once in a while. But I think, you know, where you worry more about the mental mistakes is like, can this person get to the place where they are only getting it confused once in a while as opposed to basically constantly? Right. And that's not a concern for Mahomes, certainly at this point. But yeah, how about the running game? Like, what were your? I was trying to pull up the numbers here and see what they were.
Well, I will say that was probably the most surprising thing in the game for me is that, like, Kareem Hunt looked like 2018 Kareem Hunt. Like, it was so weird to watch. Like, it almost looked like we just got, like, transported back to the 2018 offense when he was getting the ball. Like, he had the same running style. He he doesn't like have the same burst, but it's like a very subtle difference. He just looked like the same guy. And we ran that like power shovel concept that we run with him. And normally since he left, it was like a very hit or miss play, and we got like 12 yards on it. Like it was very weird. It's like Kareem Hunt went to like the fountain of youth. It makes me wonder like what was happening in Cleveland. Watching him play, I was just kind of like, what? This looks like the same guy. I don't know. And it's been 6 years since he played with us.
I mean, he did say, I think, right leading up to maybe it was this week or last week, but he said he felt like he could still play the way he used to play back from when he was with the Chiefs. And look, 14 carries, 69 yards for 4.93 average. I mean, that's nice, right? That's enviable. So on the flip side, Carson Steele, I think, lost another fumble. Is that right?
Yeah, he did, and that's what kind of led to Kareem Hunt coming in the game.
Yeah, it's Hunt's job now, essentially. At least.
I mean, to be honest with you, look, I love Isaiah Pacheco, but like Isaiah Pacheco doesn't look as good as Kareem Hunt looked today. I mean, this week. Now you never know; it's one game, but like. I don't know that because the one thing that the Chiefs really need desperately is they need some level of explosive runs. We've had the Bengals game, the Falcons game, and now the Chargers game where teams are daring us to run the ball, and we are not getting runs of like 10 plus yards. Hunt didn't even this time. But what's going to really get teams out of doing that is you have to hit some explosive runs. They're going to be willing to give you 7-yard run, then a 4-yard run, then an 8-yard run. You got to have a 20-yard run in there somewhere to make them think about it. And that's the bit that we're missing here. And Pacheco has great top-end speed, but doesn't seem like he's quite at the level of vision to like get to places where he can get going. Our hope with Carson Steele was that he does seem to have a little better vision, and though he doesn't have the top-end speed, he breaks tackles to get into the open. At least he did in the preseason. But Hunt was a guy that had it all with us. He had the contact balance, he had the vision, he would get to places, and his top-end speed was enough to kind of run away from people. I don't know if he has that anymore, but if he can at least get the first two, like maybe we can get some 15-yard runs, 18-yard runs, and then open it up a little bit from the passing game.
Yeah, it's interesting. You kind of have like the reverse problem that we have, right? You're thinking about using the run to open up the pass, whereas the only thing working for our offense right now pretty much is the passing game. So one would hope that we can do the reverse, use the pass to open up the run. But yeah, okay. Let me think. What other questions do I have for you about the Chiefs? Any other comments you wanted to make about the game or their performance? I take it given the trajectory of the offense over the game, you're still not particularly worried about them for the season at this point. Is that right?
No, I mean, you do hate the attrition. At some point, continuing to lose people is going to catch up with you. But the hope is that we'll have, we're about to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire back, and then we're hoping to have Pacheco back in, another 4 weeks. Honestly, that's not really our problem right now if Kareem Hunt is going to run like he did this week. But, the Hail Mary is that maybe we could get Rice back before, maybe even into the playoffs or something, if that were possible. And then I'm hoping still on that Hollywood Brown timeline where he would be back in, the latter 4 games of the regular season to kind of get up to speed for the playoffs. So overall, no, I'm not worried. Obviously you want to see things get better, and we still have some people in-house, if Noah Gray takes a little bit of a step up, if our third tight end, Jared Wiley, can show anything, if Worthy develops on a Rice-like trajectory, any of these things happening would be good enough, I think.
Yeah, and you can really see it setting up nicely, right? They're still winning. 4-0 is nice, regardless of how you got there. And it looks like the pieces could be set up to come back near the end of the season, and putting them together for a playoff run that would work. But yeah. We've seen them do it before. So, it does look like it sets up well.
And it's funny, too, because normally you want to have like a late bye in the year because you want your guys to be able to rest up toward the end of the year after a lot of attrition. But our guys that are getting hurt are like missing time. It's not like they're just like nicked up. So, because our bye's coming up, I think we have 2 more games and we have a bye. So even then, kind of having an earlier bye, hopefully, pushes the timeline for some of these guys one more week, and we can get Pacheco back for an earlier game than we would have. Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, things are things are still going well for the Chiefs, I would say. The season trajectory looks pretty good. Okay. I don't think I have any other questions for you about the game. I guess no, we covered everything. We will, I guess, know sooner or later what's going on with Rishi Rice, but for now, we assume he'll be out for a chunk of time at least.
Yeah, I expect he'll be out for a long time, and I think the most likely scenario is out for the season. But the little part of me is like, if that were the case, why wouldn't they have told us? There's no advantage in not telling us. Like, there has to be some hope that he's coming back. That's the only rational reason I can think of that we don't know the information. It might be a slim hope, but they're not willing to rule him out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, right? Why not? Right? If the MRI, I guess the MRI must have not shown some. I mean, right? I mean, isn't that the natural thing to think
It
here?
couldn't have been a complete tear, right? If it's a complete tear, like we know. Like it must have shown something partial, something that's like at least one person in the room thinks could be rehabable, like maybe doesn't need surgery or maybe requires a different kind of surgery or, there's something. There's something that's not just like your standard, because if it's like 100% he has to get surgery on his knee, I think we would know. There's got to be something else.
Yeah, that's an interesting. See, philosophers like to concern themselves with the like counterfactuals, right? Like, if blank had been the case, then what would have happened? And a lot of times people get puzzled about like why do we care about counterfactuals? Like what would have happened in different scenarios? And here's a good case for why we care, right? We care about the counterfactual because it tells us something about what's actually happening, right? If he had actually torn the ACL fully, we would know. We don't know, therefore he didn't tear it fully. Right? So sometimes counterfactuals can be relevant to figuring out facts about the actual. Anyway.
And the other thing too is that like in this counterfactual, had he actually like if they knew what it was and they knew he needed surgery, there's a lot of incentive to get that surgery done as soon as possible, right? Like if you know he's going to need surgery, like go get it done so that he can be ready as soon as possible to come back. Be it, even if that means for the next regular season next year. So the only situation where I feel like you would delay surgery is if there's a potential that the surgery could be so complicated that you need to really make sure you know what you're dealing with. But there's no reason not to provide at least the information that he's out for the year in that case. So I don't know. It's a little weird.
Yeah. Well, there's your glimmers of hope for Chiefs fans.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Well,
we can jump over to the Steelers game. The Steelers.
Kind of.
I had confused actually for the people that actually watched the Steelers breakdown in detail. First of all, much appreciated. But second of all, I referred to the Steelers preseason game as being against the Colts when I meant it was against the Lions. It's a team with blue and white and they're playing in the dome. Like I couldn't remember who it was. I did say that I was unsure that it was the Colts in the video, and then I was like, well, they're playing the Colts in the regular season, so I really doubt they played the Colts in the postseason.
I feel like that probably is strategic, right? Like they probably plan the preseason game so that you're not playing. I don't know how.
Yeah.
Is it that they're not on their schedule at all, or is it just that you wouldn't play them early in the year?
I think it's that they're not in the schedule at all. Because I remember the Chiefs and Rams used to play the Governor's Cup, where they would play each other every year. But so that would always be a preseason game, except the year when they would play in the regular season, and that would be the regular season game. So 3 out of 4 years, the Chiefs would play the Rams in the preseason, and then they would not play the fourth year. They would play in the regular season.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess there's at least a unwritten rule. Maybe it's written that you don't play your preseason games against teams you have on your regular season schedule. Anyway, yeah, we did not play the Colts in the preseason. But maybe that would have helped. I don't know.
One would argue maybe you did not play the Colts for the first half of the regular season game either.
That's right. The defense certainly didn't. I don't know what. Yeah, so like general thoughts. I guess what are my general thoughts? Well, what level are they general enough to count as general? I guess Field still looks good. I think he should still be starting. He's not the reason we lost, at least. He's the reason it was close. The defense looks suddenly not good, so that's concerning. And the offensive line at this point is just they've had enough injuries for a season. We are done. Thank you. But yeah, they're struggling, especially in run blocking, I think. But I mean, it's hard to blame them with the number of injuries they've had at this point. So I guess those are my high level thoughts. But oddly enough, like sort of big picture, I was still kind of encouraged by this game because it like Fields looked about as good or maybe better than he did last week. Overall, I would say definitely in the first half there were some struggles, but overall, you know, it last week doesn't look like an aberration now. He was still decisive, make quick reads, pretty accurate. Still makes those really impressive throws on occasion, and he used his legs more in this one. So, in terms of like finding our quarterback for a while, I feel like the case is looking better that Fields could be that. I don't know. There's other things to be worried about, but there was at least, you know, some encouraging things about the game.
Yeah, I mean, I really felt like that second half offensively, I thought was very impressive. That there were a lot of high leverage drives down by 2 scores, and Fields came down, brought him down, they scored. And then the defense promptly put him in another situation, and then he came down and scored again. Like, I really thought he played extremely well in that second half. And the only like real moment, I can't pretend like I watched every snap of this game. It wasn't being shown in the New York markets, but I did catch a lot of it. But the only like really rough snap was that fumble, which that was like, oh no, we're back to Chicago Bears field. But besides that, I thought he played really well.
That was definitely trying to do too much and then making yourself look foolish. But yeah, I mean, I guess he's got to find that line. It's like, where am I trying to do too much? And, you know, to find it, sometimes you have to cross it. So hopefully that's what was happening there. We can avoid doing that again. But,
and I'm curious as to what you think their red zone plan is going to be going forward, because I feel like they really showed that if they center things around Fields' ability to run, they can really do a lot in the red zone. And then I wonder if they can play off of that and have like design passes. I mean, he's just such a dangerous weapon in the red zone. I think you're going to really have a much easier time scoring touchdowns inside the 10 this year.
I do think so. I think, right, he's run for a couple touchdowns now already this year. And he's, you know, once teams start trying to defend that, it's going to open up other things. And I was encouraged to see Darnell Washington get involved a bit more. He had that crazy, like, someone his size should not be able to hurdle somebody, but he hurdled, I don't remember, a cornerback or something along the sideline there on a catch and run. Like, he is surprisingly athletic, and I think he should be more involved. He did catch a touchdown maybe week 2, was it? In Denver, but you know, I would expect to use him in the red zone more. But yeah, I think you might be able to play off of Fields' running ability there, and it'll be cool to see if we can design some things to confuse people with that in mind. Yeah, honestly. Well, I do have concerns about the offense, and they're mostly about the offensive line. And then whenever Najee Harris is running, it's just like nothing is there to be had. When Cordero Patterson gets in, and then suddenly the seat parts, and we can get these like 10, 15-yard gains, although he's injured too, so I'm not sure how bad that is. But I get why you'd be frustrated if you were Harris. And he has seemed kind of frustrated at times this year. Just teams will stack the box, and we need to block better, and hopefully maybe use the passing game to make people drop off a bit more. Although again, the passing game was overall. I mean, the last time we had a quarterback throw for 300 yards and a touchdown it was Ben Roethlisberger. It was in 2021. I don't know which game it was, but a game like this is like, it's been a while, and it wasn't even like this. It was like 312 and a touchdown or something like that. But for us, that is high level play, not what we're used to. So, uh, yeah, I think the passing game was certainly not our weak point here. We had some ill-timed, yeah, uh, turnovers, penalties that really helped swing the game. I think like we could have won this game despite
Uh-huh.
starting as badly as we did. Um, Minka got a roughing penalty on a deep pass, which like I can see both sides to that. I think a lot of Steelers fans were upset, but you know, um, and Pickens had that fumble like inside the 5
Oh, okay.
like there was
I
no reason to be even reaching him at that
uh,
point.
and why he holds the ball like that? I hate it so much. Like, why don't you just tuck that football? Like, that was such a self-inflicted fumble.
Yeah, he always makes things. I don't know if it's just because he thinks it looks stupid to tuck it or something, but I would not be surprised if that was one. But anyway, I think yeah, we could have won this game, and I'm not like too worried about just losing it in isolation. I am worried about the sort of the signs about maybe that our defense is not what we thought it was.
Yeah,
The Colts had a lot of success early running it, pushing around our defensive line in a way that
yeah,
was surprising. Although, like maybe, we had a limited sample size. We had 3 games. The defensive line looked very good. But, it's like, I feel like part of what's surprising oftentimes or what causes surprise is that you have these sort of like paradigms of what the team could be, like what they could be really good at, and like you could have it. You think of like the Eagles or the Giants from the mid 2000s having a really good defensive line and just dominating teams that way. And basically, well, we are now back from an unplanned break there. I guess Zoom planned a break for us, but we did not plan. But as I was saying, right, so you can have these kind of like paradigms of what a good team would be, or what a maybe not even a good team, just like the ways a team could be very good or very bad. And I think it was tempting after the first couple of weeks there to lump the Steelers into this kind of paradigm of having a dominating defensive line. Um, but honestly, right, like maybe we were premature doing that because uh, we did have a very small data set for how good our defensive line would have been and whether they could dominate a game, and they did for a couple of weeks there. But that's something that really has to be earned over the course of a season. So I think that might explain some of the surprise with how this went, or maybe this was just like a bad day at the office for the defensive line, and they'll come back and look like they haven't, look like they did in the first 3 weeks. Next week when we play Dallas, although hard to hard to be super confident of that.
well, I
Yeah.
think too the Colts apparently even before this game their offensive line had been playing pretty well this season. I think like PFF had them as the number one graded offensive line
Um,
prior to week 4. So I think it may be also just that, bad day at the office, good offensive line. And it might be instructive to us that, this is the way that the Steelers are going to beat teams is their defensive line needs to dominate. And in times when it doesn't, maybe the defense won't
mhm.
look so good.
Yeah, it might be a way to basically just make predictions. How good is the opponent's offensive line? And do we think our defensive line can dominate them? Yeah, I think another way to. I mean, this doesn't explain their running success early on. I think the Colts later on. I think the defense kind of settled in and cut off a lot of the bigger runs. The second half, I don't remember many really substantial runs for the Colts. A lot of like 3 and 4 yard carries, but nothing like they were getting in the first half. But also, just Richardson had what 4 passes and then was replaced by well, a little bit interspersed there, but was replaced by Flacco in this game. And having a game plan for Richardson that suddenly is sort of thrown out the window when Flacco
Yeah.
comes in, that can be tough. All right, I think I would have preferred, I mean, not having seen how it played out, I would have preferred Richardson not get hurt and just stay in there
That
so
was
that
one
we
of the
have the,
questions I was going to ask you.
yeah. I mean, but we all know I'm also very skeptical about Richardson, although he did look pretty good in those four passes or whatever and a couple runs too. Um, but um, anyway, yeah, I think, you know, combination of the offensive line pushing us around a bit and then suddenly having a different quarterback in there that you didn't game plan much for, who is very experienced and especially experienced at beating the Steelers because Flacco's been around the block. Um, yeah, I mean, a variety of factors there that can explain why the defense was not as good this game. But still, you would have liked them to be. You would have liked them to overcome all those factors and still be dominant. That would have been nice, but a lot to ask.
Yeah, and it was especially tough when the offense got going. And so then you were like, man, if you guys can just make a stop or two here, like this game might turn on its head. And it almost felt like it was going to anyway, but it was just a little too late.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, there were, I mean, you know, in any game that comes down to like 3 points or something, or one score, you have those moments where you look back on it, think that could have changed the game. And there were a couple, Joey Porter Jr. missed, I think on the first pass, he mistimed that jump arguably, and it was just over his fingertips for like a 30-yard gain. And then he dropped a pick in the end zone,
Yeah.
which turned into, I think, just a field goal on that drive later in the game. And then that Minka penalty, like you could, that stunk. uh, but you know,
Even a couple plays on the final effort where like Fields kicked his leg to get the snap and then wasn't ready for the snap and they fumbled the snap and then the play after that when Najee Harris didn't get out of bounds and then got pushed backwards and so did the forward progress left him inbounds and they lost a
yeah,
ton of time for the fourth down play. Like there were a couple things like that where if they had just been ironed out, they might have been able to come down and kick a field goal.
yeah, you know, you had to feel like fairly good about like the offense had been moving it and scoring, and we got the ball with like 2 minutes and 30 some seconds left and a timeout. You had to feel pretty good at that point. Uh, like, I mean, not wonderful, but you know, you feel like we got a good shot here.
Mm-hmm.
But it went south definitely. I mean, the bad snap, or I don't know if I don't know who to blame for that. I mean, it looked like Fields was still talking to some other players on offense when it happened, and so my guess is it was Zach Frazier's fault. He snapped it early, but I don't know. I mean, maybe Fields didn't he have the foot raise thing to indicate that
Yeah.
it was like I'm ready.
And he kicked his leg, and then it looked like McCormick tapped Frazier when he saw the leg kick.
Mm.
I think someone said that I didn't actually like read the post game quotes, but someone was saying on Twitter that Fields had taken responsibility, saying that like he kicked the leg and then he saw something change in the coverage, and he's like, but I should know that when I kick the leg, like
Yeah,
they're gonna snap the ball.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Okay, yeah. That answers that. Then it's probably Fields' fault. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But you know, there's always going to be a couple plays like that where you can look back and regret them. Yeah. It's part of what makes it fun.
or the Pickens fumble too. Ugh.
Yeah, that I mean, just get 3 points out of that, which would have been easy at that point.
Yeah.
No, different game. Yeah.
So you want to preview next week?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I realized we didn't pick these games last week.
Yeah.
We were kind of rushing it a bit, condensed time frame. But yeah, so next week we host
We're both
Dallas
playing
on
night
Sunday Night
games.
Football.
Yeah.
Are you on Monday night?
Yeah. Monday night we're playing the Saints.
Okay. Yeah, I knew the Saints were coming, but I didn't realize that was Monday night. That's fun. Well, what do you want to do? Well, let's do Steelers first, since it's the first chronologically.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know what to expect. What else is new? I think it'll be fun to see which defense shows up. I think, you know, Dallas is a good offense, despite the fact that they have struggled some this year to score a lot of points. But um, uh, it'll be, yeah, I'll be interested to see if our defense can get back to the form of the first 3 weeks. And I think I guess it's unclear who's starting at quarterback. I think Fields is still like the expectation, but Tomlin hasn't said anything that just settles it definitively. I'm on board at this point. I want Fields to start, and I'm excited to see what they can do at home. It did seem like coming home in week 3 sort of gave them a bit of a boost. I don't know. I think it could be. Gosh, I don't know how to pick this game score wise because it really depends on the defense. Maybe like, ooh, geez, 23-17. But who? If 23-17 Steelers, if the Steelers are going to win. if the Cowboys are going to win, I feel like it could be like 31-24. But I can't. That's not fair. I have to pick I have to actually have a pick, right? So I guess I'll say 23-17 Steelers.
Okay, that's very close to what I was going to pick. Yeah, my pick was going to be 20-17 Steelers. I think I like this being in Pittsburgh. I wish it were like 8 weeks from now. I feel like in that cold weather when you can see their breath, like I would be certain that this would be a Steelers win. But although I'll say aesthetically, because they would both be wearing the same uniforms, it would be nice in Dallas. Like I feel like aesthetically it would look really good on TV in Dallas. But it'll be good. I love night games in Pittsburgh. I think it'll be just a real slugfest. But I don't think it'll be a situation where I think it'll be more like the first couple games where the Steelers will be kind of ahead the whole game. Like an early touchdown, and I think Dallas will be kind of struggling through the game to move the ball, but we'll get a couple of touchdown drives here and there and make it close. But yeah, I just think it'll remind me of one of the like Steelers Ravens games from the past where it's like low scoring, looks like very physical football, and the Steelers find a way to win.
Yeah, I hope it's not like those Steelers Ravens games because those are always so emotionally draining and taxing on the viewer, at least the viewer, me as the viewer. But yeah, I could see that. It's probably neither team's going to be comfortable for a lot of the game, which is, it's a type of game. Okay, what about Chiefs and Saints? Do you want to pick that one before I do?
Yeah, I think it'll be similar in the scoreline. It'll be like a somewhat frustrating offensive performance from the Chiefs. It'll feel like we should be winning by more. I think I'm going to pick something a little odder because I think we're going to kick a lot of field goals. So I'm going to go 25-17 Chiefs.
25 is a hard number to get to, but I guess, yeah, you can get there. A lot of field goals, like maybe 6 field goals or something.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, how would we get to 25? Well, maybe we'll like miss an extra point too or something. Or like go for 2 once.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the Saints have definitely cooled off since they started the season so explosively. And it does feel like this could be kind of low scoring. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll say 28-17 Chiefs.
Man, if the Chiefs score 4 touchdowns, I'm going to be so happy.
Yeah, I mean that's maybe a bit bold of a prediction, but I think they'll show up. It's a Monday night game, I guess they've had primetime games already this year, but yeah, it'll be fun. What about from around the league this week? Anything you wanted to talk about? I mean, I guess Jaden Daniels looks good.
Yeah, wow. I don't know what to say about that. I thought this was going to be a shootout. I'm really surprised that they just blew the doors off of Arizona.
Yeah.
Like, I thought this was going to be like a 34-28 kind of game or something. But, wow, Jaden Daniels.
His
He looks
completion
like
percentage is just
it's like
ridiculous, right?
over 82%, I think.
Yeah. It was 26 of 30 in this one, and then last week I think he had, what, 2 or 3 incompletions total. It just, wow. That's, you know, they could really have something there.
I might be doing a punishment because I think that was one of your unlikely but plausible that Jaden Daniels would win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Well, I think you said it was what? You said it might. I don't know if you picked it to happen or was it a lock?
No, unfortunately the only thing I did related to it was I picked unlikely but plausible that Terry McLaurin will make an All-Pro team because of Daniels playing well. But I unfortunately didn't put any futures in Daniel. What did I say for that division? Oh God, my pick for that division. Oh no, that's not that bad. My lock was that Daniel Jones won't start for the Giants next year.
That's still very believable.
Yeah, it's possible.
Um, but yeah, I think that would be funny because you were more on board with Jane Daniels winning Offensive Rookie of the Year than I was, and yet you might have to do a punishment.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I didn't watch this one, but I did watch last week when they beat the Bengals, and he was just so impressive on that. I mean, and their confidence in him and just calling plays and letting him, go for it on fourth down or pass it to close out the game. It was awesome to see. So yeah, they could be dangerous, or they are dangerous, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like anyone else in the NFC East is really showing their chops. If we want to kind of go through, the Cowboys had a somewhat unimpressive win in New York on Thursday night. I don't know that game really taught us anything about either team.
Yeah.
And then the Eagles really struggled with the Buccaneers again after losing to them in the playoffs last year. And the Buccaneers kind of had their way with them.
Yeah, that was surprising too, I guess, worth commenting on. Tampa Bay really just handling the Eagles. I think Mayfield had another good game, right? I'm going to check his stats here. 30 of 47, 347, and 2 touchdowns.
I mean, the Eagles, honestly, that's one of the things I'm feeling pretty good about. Was one of my narratives was that let's not assume that the Eagles offense is going to look good this year now that Jason Kelsey's gone. And I feel like if they didn't have Saquon Barkley, this offense would be almost nothing. Like Saquon Barkley has been out of his mind, and the Eagles are 2-2.
Yeah, I said I think my lock was they wouldn't finish worse than second in the division. Is that right? It's looking tenuous. Still very.
Well, if you all beat the Cowboys, then it's possible.
Yeah, we need to. Come on, guys. Let's see.
I guess I have to bring up the fact that the Vikings are 4-0 because I said that they would be under 7.5 wins, and oh boy, was I hoping! I was rooting so hard for a Green Bay comeback, and they almost did it.
Yeah, they really almost did. I didn't see the end of that game either. I think it was on the same time as the Steelers. But did you watch any of that?
I saw the highlights as it was going because I was watching Red Zone with. I think the game that was on in my market was the Jets-Broncos game, which we can talk about in a minute. But so I was paying a lot more attention to Red Zone. But
yeah, it looked like a fun game.
But the Vikings got off to a really hot start, but then they kind of started looking like how I thought they were going to play later. They struggled to move the ball. There were a lot of untimely plays. Darnold had a really bad pick, and I was suddenly like, is this starting to manifest? Is what I thought was going to happen, is it starting to happen? But no, alas. I mean, their defense is very good, the Vikings, and they do enough on offense to try to, get Darnold in good positions. But it's too bad because, I'm not completely out on the logic behind my prediction. It's just that Darnold has started hot, and I'm not expecting him to play at this level all year, but it's probably going to be enough to get them 8 wins. So I will be wrong in my prediction, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe we could do like mid-season predictions or something that can ameliorate the punishments if we're wrong about um, or just augment them if we get those wrong as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, Jordan Love, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. That's a lot of stats going on there. It reminds me of one of those like 4 touchdown, 4 pick games from Ben Roethlisberger's career. But, yeah, it's like when you throw 3 picks, you're never that happy. But I guess 4 touchdowns is nice. I don't
And it
know.
was, it's a tough ask to come in against this defense when you're coming back from injury. So the fact that he like settled down a little bit and started going in the second half is probably a good sign.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be curious to see what he's like going forward. But they seem to have a pretty good quarterback situation now with Malik Willis as a backup, given how well he played last week. Yeah, do you want to talk about the Jets and Broncos game, which looks like a thriller?
Yeah, I think the conclusion I have after the Jets and Broncos game is that I hope not too many people overreacted to their performances the week before, because I think week 3 of the Jets and Broncos you can essentially throw out. The Jets beating the doors off the Patriots, who seem like they're legitimately a terrible team now, finally. And then the Broncos beating the Bucks, which honestly may be one of those games that we look back on at the end of the year and we're like, how did that happen? Remember that week when the Broncos went to Tampa and just destroyed the Bucks? That was in Tampa, right? That game?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah,
It was on the road, yeah.
So that I think is my takeaway. It was, and the other thing I will say is that I mean, Sean Payton, I don't know, man. I don't know if he's got it anymore offensively. Like, the reason why the Broncos were in that game was their defense. And who knows, maybe if you think the Jets' defense is really good, then maybe that has some explanation. But 3 out of 4 games, Bo Nix has looked terrible. I don't know how to explain the Buccaneers game. I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a situation where Sean Payton kind of hitched his wagon to Bo Nix, and it's going to be the thing that gets him out of Denver.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, sorry. I'd be curious to see how much patience they have for him there. But I mean, with a coach of that, reputation, you might give them more than one shot. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the Broncos will do that. Bo Nix, 60 yards passing, 12 for 25. I mean.
25 attempts to get 60 yards is really something.
Yeah. I mean,
wow.
The Steelers in the late Roethlisberger years had some games like that. I mean, I don't know if they were ever that bad, but we had, it's like, it took you how many passes to get to 100 yards? But that's not great. It's not promising.
Yeah, that's really rough.
Aaron Rodgers was not too good either. 24 42.
Yeah, I mean, it looked a lot more like the Jets offense from weeks 1 and 2, where, I mean, Rodgers looked so good on that Thursday night game against the Patriots. I was kind of like, oh, maybe he's back. But, that was tough. That was a tough performance all around.
Yeah, this is looking kind of like, I mean, so far, I mean, maybe he'll turn it around. But yeah, this is not a particularly scary version of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with.
Makes it hard to understand what happened in that Patriots game, because like the Patriots defense is okay at least, and I don't know, like Rodgers, like he was moving around like old Rodgers. I was like, oh, he looks like way, and I was one that said that I was really worried about how he was going to come back from an Achilles, so I was very surprised to see that. And then now he kind of like this game honestly looked like what Green Bay playoff games used to look like the last couple of years of Rodgers in Green Bay, right? Like when they would lose to the 49ers in a sloppy game, it was like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you were the one that picked them to go further than me, so I'm happy that
I
they're
know.
not looking great. um,
Gosh, with I had the Jets in the AFC title game. I had the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Like,
I
what
mean, I think I
is
had the
going on?
Cowboys too. Right? So, yeah, I mean, uh, yeah, Cowboys need to wait a week and then figure things out. But wait one more week, that'll be helpful. Um, what else is worth commenting on? I mean, Cincinnati finally won. I do feel
Yeah, but
like, oh, I don't know, what are you gonna say?
I will say that as like I kind of followed that game as it was going, and that was not a comfortable victory until the very end. Like
Oh, good.
there was a while where it seemed like the Panthers were really in that game. So I know it looks, it was a two possession win at the end, but that was not a comfortable victory until the very end.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I didn't watch it closely, but I mean, it just felt like, yeah, the Bengals should be able to put up 35 with my conception of how good their offense should be. But um, I mean, I'm not complaining that they're 1-3 right now. Let's put it that way.
I mean,
Um,
it could have been 0-4. It could have been.
would have been fun for Andy Dalton, I'm sure, to go
Yeah.
4-2.
Also, I mean, it's such a sad testament to Bryce Young and his level of functioning right now because, man, they've been so much more of a live team with Andy Dalton in the game. Like, that's got to be very tough.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you wonder if he had started earlier, whether they would have actually pulled some things out. Well, they
Yeah.
pulled one game out, but and then Houston rebounded after a bad week. Um, and Jacksonville, I don't. I mean,
I mean,
I,
this was another game where it was like, this was not like I thought Houston was going to lose this game for most of the third and fourth quarter.
oh
Like
yeah,
this was not a game that looked like, for as bad as Jacksonville has looked, I didn't feel like this was a very good showing from Houston at home. They really could have lost this game, and I would argue that for much of the game, Jacksonville looked like the better team. Houston, they came down and they scored 3 touchdowns, but they did basically nothing in the second half until the very end of the fourth quarter. Like Jacksonville owned the second half of that game. It was very strange.
I don't know. I mean, I still have a conception of Houston as potentially a powerhouse, but I don't think they're living up to it this year. Jacksonville's having a tough time. I don't know what's going on there, but I mean, it's not. I guess it's not super surprising. I was never like that in on them, but Trevor Lawrence has a good arm, but I don't think I was ever sold that he was actually that great of a quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence looks like someone, and I don't mean this literally, but some of the stuff he does, he looks like he's very talented and yet is just like a hair off from what you're supposed to be doing, and I can't really explain why. Like, for example, he dropped back to throw, and they had a free rusher coming from his blind side. So, like, if you imagine he's standing, and then the rusher to his left, as he's in like a passing position, is coming off, and he starts to do what every mobile quarterback ever always does when this happens, is he starts to spin out, and there's nobody on his left. And then, like halfway through the spin, he second guesses the spin and comes back into the line of the rusher and gets plowed for a sack. And like, it was so weird to watch. It was almost like, are you throwing this game? Like it's like his instinct was right. He was doing exactly what everyone would do, and he just suppressed the instinct and was like, nope, I'm just going to get sacked. It was really weird to watch. I don't know what to make of it, honestly.
It's the kind of situation where like you play the game slightly differently than everybody else, and you're not in a way that's helpful, right? There's like the great players play it in a way slightly differently, and it's like, oh, that's like it works for them. They make plays off of it. And he's playing it slightly differently in a way that just is not working. Right?
But it's even like
Yeah,
his initial impulse is to do the not different thing. It's just like, just do that. You'll be fine.
I mean, maybe he watched so many Steelers games last year where Kenny Pickett would just spin for no reason and then get a sack. He's like, yeah, it's not working for him. But but I don't know. It seems. I mean, it's hard to imagine. I don't know. I mean, I'm banking on Justin Fields sort of turning a corner at this point in his career. It does feel like it's hard to imagine Trevor Lawrence suddenly putting things together in a way that he hasn't yet. But maybe he's got another gear that we're just not seeing, or maybe a different team would help.
Well, I think that our expectation for Kirk Cousins now, for Trevor Lawrence, is to be a Kirk Cousins, like as a ceiling. Like it's got to, like we got to stop expecting like a first overall pick performance from him. I don't know that that's in the cards. We would have seen something, but could he be like an above average starter that could take a good team to deep in the playoffs? Like maybe, but maybe if he shows that, I don't know that he's gonna. I would expect it. I would be very surprised with anything more, I guess I would say.
Yeah, the team around him is going to have to be very good for him to get deep in the playoffs, you would think. Maybe I just wanted to ask about the more general trend of passing offenses being less explosive, passing yardage being down overall this year so far. Do you have any thoughts about why that is? Is it just offenses or defenses have adjusted and are playing a lot of coverage? I mean, like you see the competing explanations out there about why passing yards are down, but wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
I think part of it is that. And then I heard a good argument from Stephen Ruiz from The Ringer, which I think I agree with. He was saying that it's not just that teams are running a lot of coverage shells, which, teams have been doing forever, but it's also that we're in this stage with like the salary cap that there's this interesting mix of quarterbacks that are really good in worse offensive situations and quarterbacks who are mediocre to bad in great offensive situations. Like, for example, Kyle Shanahan and his whole unit has Brock Purdy running things, whereas like Mahomes has a ton of injured receivers and, Tua has Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and, well, now it's not even Tua. And, Josh Allen has like a completely depleted wide receiving core. So I do think part of it is that we have these situations where our best quarterbacks in the league don't necessarily have a ton of weapons, and our great assemblies of weapons are with more like mediocre quarterbacks. So I wonder if that's part of it. The one exception, I guess you could say, is C.J. Stroud, but he's a second-year quarterback, and I think things will be up and down this early in his career.
Yeah, I mean, is that attributed to quarterback salary just being so humongous that it's hard for the really good ones to have a ton of talent around them?
Yeah, I think so. Although part of it too is that even not good quarterbacks are getting humongous salaries.
Yeah. Yes.
So, I don't. In Kansas City, for example, I feel like we had an opportunity to assemble. We've just had a lot of injuries. Like if Brown were healthy all year and Rice were healthy all year, I think there was a real opportunity to have an explosive offense. With Josh Allen, I think they're more strapped, not so much just because of his contract, but because of all the moves. They pushed a lot of chips into the center of the table over the last 2 or 3 years, and they're kind of paying for it this year.
Yeah, actually, maybe we should talk about their game too, because that was another noteworthy one against the Ravens, who just demolished them. I watched some of that game. It wasn't really enjoying it as a Steelers fan, but yeah. Baltimore looks good again. They can run it. I'll just leave it at that.
I do think that their success is predicated on whether they can run it. And I think the Bills were so depleted that they just were not able to handle Henry. I mean, I think Henry, besides the Chiefs game, has played pretty well this year. But I think part of that is that the Chiefs really sold out against the run and managed to hold him, and then the Ravens only scored 20 points in that game. I do think that teams are going to be able to do better against Baltimore if they key in on Derrick Henry more. It's kind of like those old Titans offenses, like they would look amazing when you let Henry run all over you, but if you played it, straight up against the run, I think they struggled a little more. So
Mhm.
I'm not terrified of their offense yet. I think it's very early in the year. But clearly Buffalo didn't have the horses to stop Derrick Henry, and we saw that early. I'm still surprised that they lost by that much. And this game did, I mean, there was a potential turning point in the third quarter when Josh Allen, he had rolled out and had that crazy pass to Khalil Shakir where I don't know what was going on with the Ravens defense that I think they were so certain he was going to run that they just came up and he launched it over everyone's head. And they ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive to make it 21-10. And at that time, they had really started, they had 3 or 4 drives in a row where the Ravens could do nothing offensively. And they got it to 21-10. Then they got the ball back. And then they decided to run a direct snap to Curtis Samuel where he pitched it back to Allen. And Allen just got leveled. And he fumbled and his head hit the turf. And I feel like that ended up, there was a point in there where I really thought the Bills were going to make it a game again, and then it all went down. And a lot of the balls the balls bounced the Ravens' ways in key moments. Derrick Henry fumbled on the goal line into the end zone, and the Ravens recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. So there were a couple moments like that too. But so I mean, the Ravens earned this victory for sure, and they did dominate the game. But I don't think, if they played this game multiple times, I think it would be very close most of the time. These seemed like 2 evenly matched teams that the Ravens kind of got the better of them in the first half and then got a couple bounces in the second half. They guessed right in certain situations and things so that Buffalo couldn't come back. But I think these were more evenly matched teams than this specific game would imply.
I like that take. It makes me less scared of Baltimore. But Buffalo looked so good the week before, and then just to have that performance after that was kind of surprising. I was thinking they might be able to help us with the Ravens, but alas. Yeah. Anything else from this week that's worth?
I'll just touch a little bit on Seahawks Lions because I actually find that a similar-ish game in that, I mean, the Lions offense is finally had a performance that I think people were expecting from them. Their offense was really, really good in this game. But the Lions defense was not good. This was another one where the Seahawks had a couple key turnovers. Otherwise, for a little while, they were matching the Lions blow for blow. They even got it down to a 1-score game. I think, I'm trying to remember what game situation was. I think it was 35-21, and then the Seahawks scored and decided to. No, that might not be right. I'm going to forget the exact game situation, but the Seahawks got it to 1 score, and actually, this could kind of inform a discussion here about the whole strategy of being down 14, scoring a touchdown, and then going for 2. Yeah, no, so I was right. It was 35-21, and the Seahawks came down and scored a touchdown. And this was with, let's see. The Seahawks scored their touchdown with 20 seconds to go in the third quarter. Just the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And so then the question was, they tried the strategy which some teams employ, which is when you're down 14, you score a touchdown, they decide to go for 2. The idea being that if you go for 2 and then score another touchdown, the idea is that you'll at least get one of the 2. There's a pretty high likelihood statistically that you'll get one of the 2. So you could always, tie the game that way. And if you get the 2 the first time, then by kicking an extra point, you could win the game. So this is a lot of the stats people are really starting to support this theory. And I think it's a reasonable theory. I don't know that I would employ it right at the beginning of the fourth quarter, though. To me, part of the idea behind this theory is that you're expecting to only get the ball maybe 1 or maybe 2 more times. So this is an end of game situation where you're all right, we're down, we're going to get the extra point, and then we got to get a stop, and then we can come down and win this game. But when your first touchdown is right at the beginning of the fourth quarter, it felt a little early for me to do that.
Yeah, it seems like it's a kind of strategy that would work better if the other team is not going to have too many possessions in between, your scores, or at least between them and the end of the game, right? Because if there's time for them to even get a field goal in there, then this advantage is gone essentially. Um, so it does seem a little bit early. You really want it to be like your last two drives of the game, sandwiched around maybe one drive where you're hoping to get a stop quickly for the other team. But
Oh, you know what? I actually even misstated this. It wasn't on that one. It was when the Lions were up 28-14, and I thought it was in the third quarter. There was 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. This is when they did it, and they scored a touchdown. So they're trying to make it 28-20. So even earlier in the game than I previously thought, and they decided not to go for it, or they decided to go for it there. And the weird thing is that so they went for two. And in my opinion, I think DK Metcalf caught it, and I think he got it. And they erroneously called pass interference on Carlton Davis, who I do not think interfered with DK Metcalf. But they called the pass incomplete. And the Seahawks didn't challenge, took the pass interference penalty, moved up like a yard, and then tried again and didn't get it. But I think if they had challenged the original, I think DK caught that. So they actually would have converted. But the other part of this strategy that confused me, and part of the reason why I'm all over the place and trying to figure out when this happened, was they do this with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. So they're kind of pot committed now. You went for it. You're now down 8. You're down 28-20. And the Seahawks, and the Lions came and scored a touchdown on like a one-play drive right after that, a bomb to Jameson Williams. Well, then the Seahawks come down again and score a touchdown. And so now they make it, they're down 9 and are thinking about whether to go for 2 or kick the extra point. And they kick the extra point in this situation. And to me, in that situation, then it's wrong. Then I would have gone for 2 because you're going to have to go for 2 at some point. You've created this situation where kicking an extra point gets you down 8. At some point, you're going to have to go for 2.
You might as well go for it early. Make it sooner rather than later. All right.
Yeah, so it's weird to employ the kind of stats based. Well, this is going to be a real how the sausage is made episode with tons of. Both of our breaks were just Zoom cutting us off. But I guess to get back into the discussion we were having before we were cut off, I found it really surprising that the Seahawks decided to take what people would consider as the more analytical decision to go for 2 down by 14, but to do it so early where I feel like it's really intended to be used when you have very few possessions left. And then later, when confronted with a situation where now you're down 9 after getting the 6 points, you're going to need a 2-point conversion at some point. You have fewer possessions left than you did last time. They don't go for 2, which would be the right decision to make there. You want to go for 2 so that you'll know that the logic behind it, and I think, Chris, you were kind of explaining this before, is that if you're going to have to go for 2, so you want to know whether you're going to get it or not. Because whether you get it or not is going to help determine how many possessions you need. If you get it, then you only need 1 more possession. But if you don't get it, you're going to need 2. And so you'd rather know you didn't get it early enough when there's still enough time to have those 2 possessions. So that decision I didn't get at all. Not that it mattered because they just couldn't stop the Lions for the rest of the day anyway, so the Lions kept scoring.
Yeah, but I do think that logic, that seems to be the right decision. If you know you need to go for 2 at some point, don't postpone it as much as maybe you want to postpone it to keep the illusion that you've got something going here. But knowing sooner is better so that you can plan whether you have to onside kick or whatever on the next drive because you're going to need more possessions if you don't make it. Right? So it does seem like the sooner the better. Anyway.
But that Lions defense, I mean, if this is truly going to be a Super Bowl contender that many people think it's going to be, and, I covered my doubt about that mainly due to Jared Goff, who was perfect. He was 18 for 18 for 200 some odd yards today. But so he was not at all the negative, but that defense, they're really letting teams move up and down the field. At least they let this team do it. So they're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah. I mean, Geno Smith has been pretty good this year, which is still a nice turnaround story in the last 2 years for him. But But yeah, I mean, still giving up that many yards to 500 some yards, I think, to the Seahawks.
Yeah, and I think
That's not a good
Kenneth
defense.
Walker had like 6 yards a carry or something absurd. Like,
Yeah, it's like 5 more yards per carry than Najee Harris had. um,
the
okay.
one thing I did want to say about Najee Harris, I forgot, was that he, when he caught that screen pass, you can tell he still has some juice. Like,
Oh
you
yeah,
know, like when he gets the ball in the open field, it's not like he's just like, rumbling. Like he can go. So that makes it all the more frustrating that he's not getting any holes in the run game.
I do think he's got, and I think he lost a bit of weight. He slimmed down a bit this off season, and like he looks nimbler than we're used to. Still strong and powerful, but like he has, I don't know. I mean, the line has not been doing him any favors, but he has the makings of a really good back. I think it's just not coming together for whatever reason. But um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's reason to at least hope that he still could turn it on. Again, I don't think it's really his fault that he hasn't had a huge game yet. But um, yeah, there's some hope there. If our offensive line can ever like stay healthy and gel, but that's not happening yet. um, so I guess that might be all we have for the general NFL stuff. And I guess we can wrap up with some anecdotes. Does that seem good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Um, if you want to go, I've got one based on. Well, I'll let you go if you want to go first.
Well, I don't know how well this anecdote, like what light this, I think I know exactly what light this anecdote paints us. I don't know why I said that. It paints us as like the dorks that we were growing up. And I want to say this was when we were in 10th grade, or it could have been ninth grade. But I don't recall which one of us came up with the idea, but we came up with the idea of like, I'm trying to think about like a way to put this like nicely on the podcast. But
I might know where you're going with this.
there are situations in which, people wear clothing that's not always appropriately covering themselves. And we decided to term ourselves, we called it the cleavage refs. So like when we were frustrated by someone like not being appropriately covered, we would mime like throwing a flag to each other.
Wow, I don't remember this. This is not where I thought you were going, but there's another. This just
I'm so
jogged my
curious to
memory.
where I'm curious where you thought I was going. But yeah, I remember thinking like when looking back on it, I feel like that's a good encapsulation of like how
Yeah.
odd we were as children. Like we were so frustrated by this that we would just be like, throw a penalty, like throw a flag.
Did this have anything to do with like our dress code at the school we
Yeah,
went to?
yeah.
Okay,
So
so
our
it wasn't
school,
like totally in a vacuum, at least.
no. It was, yeah. I should have explained this a little better. Like our school had a dress code that was honestly like not that strict compared to like places that have uniforms and all. Like for men, you had to wear collared shirts and you couldn't wear jeans. It had to be like khaki material pants.
It's probably still
And
why I wear collared shirts like all the time, basically. Just
I
used to it
just
from
got accustomed
middle
to
school.
it.
Yeah.
And then I guess women, it was a lot more like they had to wear like khaki material pants, but I don't know that anyone understood what the women's dress code was. Which I don't envy being a woman. I feel like dress code part is a lot more complicated, but so I don't know what their dress code was. But people definitely like as a guy, you didn't really try to push the boundaries of the dress code, but I don't know where you would push anyway. Like, but
There was like sometimes you could wear a T-shirt, but it had to be like either CIS colors or I
yeah,
don't
but
remember what
also
the
like
criteria
only
were.
on specific days
Yeah.
too, right? Like there'd be like spirit days and you could wear a t-shirt, or they would have like theme days during spirit week and you could, if you were in the spirit, you could wear a t-shirt. The funniest one would be like twin day. Yeah, you could wear like not in the dress code if you were twin with somebody else. And so some people would wear like a basic t-shirt and jeans or something and just like match with each other.
Just hope someone else is wearing that too. Yeah. Yeah, but that would be a way to like sort of push. I remember I had a shirt that was like, I'm not sure that's really the CIS colors, but you could make the case that it was or something. I think that was maybe what boundary pushing at its finest. But yeah, no, I totally forgot about the cleavage ref thing. Holy cow! That it did remind me of another story, which is not the anecdote I wanted to tell, but I got to figure out a way to tell this one that it just reminded me of on the podcast. Well, we can discuss. But the one that I was going to tell originally was so last week in Mike Tomlin's press conference, he mentioned how there's a kind of nakedness to the game, right? Like there's nowhere to hide when you're out there on the field, and like you gotta be well prepared, and you gotta like lay it all out there. And if you don't succeed, it can be pretty apparent that you're not up to par. I was just thinking about like times in my life where like, I felt like essentially what he's describing. And one that came to mind was from high school, or maybe it must have been high school. It was like my pre-calc class. And, I was always like fairly studious, I think, but it was this day, like I came into class, I was like, are you ready for your test? And I was like, wait, we have a test today? It was like the worst feeling right there. That's like the kind of nakedness I guess Mike Tomlin might have been describing. It's just like, there was nowhere to hide. I cannot leave. I can't just like pretend I'm sick or something. Like I remember thinking like, can I get out of this somehow? Nope, I just got to take this test, and it didn't go well. But yeah, that was... I guess that's like getting blown out in some respect in your home stadium. I don't know. But there's a nakedness to taking a test that you're not prepared for. So I'll put it that way. But anyway, I got it. On the other time, we have to talk off air about this because I wonder how to. Anyway, yeah, there's a good anecdote there to be conveyed somehow or other. Okay. Well, anything else that we need to talk about on air this week?
I don't think so. Although I just realized that we won't be able to recap the Chiefs game on our next podcast because it will not have happened yet while we record. So
we can try to find another day next week. Well, maybe we'll talk about that off air too. Figure out if we can find an alternative time. Yeah,
but we probably will be doing it on Monday. And if so, we will have a Steelers recap, and I guess we'll recap 2 Chiefs games the next week or something. We'll have to figure that out. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. That's good. Well, thanks for listening, and you got 2 unplanned breaks today, so that's extra special.
Exciting. Yeah, please continue following along, either on whatever podcast app you download podcasts. That's the Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings podcast. Or on Instagram, TikTok, or what's the other one? Twitter at STCF715. Thanks, everyone, and until next time.
Yeah.